All right. All right. 1970s California, specifically Metro Los Angeles, a multicultural area. I was 8 years old, and I was thinking about one of the songs on the radio that was popular at the time, the Rolling Stone song, "You Can't Always Get What You Want." That's right. You can't always get what you want. So I was 8-year-old kid, and I'm looking out my window, and I'm banned from this place across the street where I live. And this place I referred to as an urban oasis, which can be described as a public park. It's operated by the city of Los Angeles, and it's bordered on one side by the loud, noisy, busy Hollywood freeway, and on the other side by loud, noisy apartment buildings. And as an 8-year-old, I lived in the ground floor of one of those apartment buildings, and with my mom and my two brothers. And it was a cramped one-bedroom apartment. It was dark, dingy. It had boxes piled up, just like you see on the show Hoarders. But the best thing I could say about that apartment was that it had windows facing the park. And the park was unique, and it was different than any place around this concrete jungle. It was like this pristine grassy field that was flat. It was just inviting all the kids in the neighborhood to play football. Next to it was a baseball diamond that they'd have Little League. And then next to it was the recreation center that you could actually rent out little games like caroms and stuff like that. So naturally, that's the place where all the kids in the neighborhood would gravitate and were allowed to be unsupervised. At that time, as an 8-year-old, I took rules a little differently than a lot of my friends. I would constantly get in trouble. And I ran against frequently the new park director at the time. His name was Mac Robinson. And Mac Robinson was this former truant officer from a local high school. And he is, I can describe him as this large African-American man with a beaming smile and a personality to match, right? So you couldn't be any more opposite. We have me and him, going off against each other. He was like the cat to my mouse. And Mac Robinson always seemed to be 2 steps ahead of me when I would goof around at the park. I would play football when I'm not allowed. I would use my skateboard down the steps, and I would ride my bike on the premises. And those things were confiscated, and they're usually locked away in the cabinet, the equipment room. And so my frequent run-ins with Mac Robinson were legendary in my mind because he was a strict disciplinarian, and the parents loved him for it, right? The adults referred to Mac Robinson as a former Olympian, and I didn't know what that meant. I saw him as an old balding man, and I would tell him frequently about that's what he thought. I thought he looked like. And I always thought that he was picking on me, and I would run my mouth and tell him that. And it all came to a head one day where I was with my friends, and Mac Robinson wouldn't take it anymore, and he took my lunch from me and proceeded to eat my lunch in front of me and my friends, and I was completely embarrassed, right? I've never seen, who does that, right? And I went running home crying, and I said to my mom, Mac Robinson is eating my chips. And my mom just took a breath, and she said, "Did you run your mouth?" And I said, yes. And she said, "Deal with it." And that was a relationship I had with the park director, Mac Robinson, until I devised a plan. On Saturday morning, I was going to get the keys that he would have to that I could sneak away and get my stuff out of the locked equipment room. But on that Saturday, it was a Saturday that changed my life, because in my having to focus on Mac Robinson to see if I had an opportunity to get the key to the kingdom, my kingdom, I had to concentrate and watch what he was doing. And that busy Saturday morning was interesting because he had to deal with not just the problems at the park, but all the problems that were brought into the park. And remarkably, this park was graffiti free, gang free, surprisingly, and drug free. And it was sort of like a safe zone for us kids. And I really didn't understand that until I saw him go up to a bunch of teenagers that were fighting, fist fighting, and he separated them, had them shake hands, walk it off, and 15 minutes later, everyone's playing. It's back to normal again. And I thought that was extraordinary how he could magically do things like that. One young man had the wind knocked out of him, and I'm shadowing Mac Robinson as he walks up to the young boy who was lying prone on the ground. With one hand, he pulls on the belt of the boy, resuscitating him to get air back into his system. And again, 15 minutes later, back to normal. And these sort of problems he does in an extraordinary way that my brain would shift, and I would watch what he would do. And he would use extraordinary patience, fairness, and he would use respect in a way that I've never seen somebody do it. For example, he would stick up for us kids when a parent who was obviously drunk would be yelling out to the opposing team. He would ban the parent from the park, but he would say that the kid was welcome at any time. And I thought that was extraordinary for somebody to do that at the time. Now, slowly over time, I let my guard down and I told him my hopes and my dreams about who I wanted to be. And in turn, Mac Robinson gave me a few more chores and opportunities at the park. I was able to work the concession stand. I was able to bring in and out the equipment and eventually even actually have the keys to the equipment room. And I respected him for that, his patience with me. Now, a decade after that, I grew into adulthood, and there wasn't a Saturday that I didn't think about how I would respond to the day's problems using a version of what Mac would do, right? And it helped me out a lot in my life. But one of the greatest memories I have is with my father, my estranged father at the time, but I got with my father later on, a decade later, and we talked about Mac. And one of the greatest moments I had with my father was when the LA Olympics came to Los Angeles in 1984. And I remember that Mac Robinson was a former Olympian, right? So wouldn't you know it, we're watching the Olympics and this opening ceremonies, and it seemed like the whole city was shut down and they were watching the opening ceremonies with us. And in walks into the Los Angeles Coliseum holding a flag was Mac Robinson. And my dad and I, we were just jumping up and down, hugging, because finally, Mac Robinson was recognized as a silver medalist, not as a person who was the older brother of Jackie Robinson, the famous baseball player, or the person who lost to Jesse Owens. He's actually now recognized as the silver medalist, former Olympian. And all I can think about is all the kids, just like me, hanging out with their parents, watching this. That his greatest achievement, I think, is all the kids that he would be as a mentor, as a leader, who watched him use extraordinary patience in solving these problems. And every day when I go by a park, every day when I go by a high school or even the Boys and Girls Club, I think there's got to be a Mac Robinson in there, right? And I think there has to be somebody thinking and acting like a person with with massive amount of patience and using fairness, respect, and dignity. And that's what makes me feel good when I think about my relationship with Mac Robinson, a story that I don't think is known well enough. But I think there's a group of us kids who are now adults that can have this kind of conversation about Mac Robinson. So I wanted to share that with you. Thank you.